All right, it's Professor Cooper here with another video. This time we're going to talk about themes in ggplot 2. Uh, Themes really allow you to control pretty much all the details in a ggplot environment that aren't related to the data. All right, meaning you're not, they're the arbitrary choices that you're going to make about things like what colors you want to be displayed that aren't related to data, how the background looks, the fonts, the size, the legend, axis ticks, like axis tick labels, things like that, right? So things that aren't tied to the variation in a variable belong in a theme. And so I'm going to show you how to make your own theme, and then I'm going to show you all the different possibilities. I'm not going to show you every single one in this example, but I'm going to show you where you can go see what all the different arguments are for a theme. I'm going to start with a simple plot, and that plot is going to look from the MT cars, and I'm just going to plot uh, weight for the cars on the x-axis and fuel efficiency on miles per gallon on the y-axis. And then I'm going to have a third aesthetic that sets the color of the points to be based on the number of cylinders in the car. And I'm going to wrap a factor so that, because actually in the original MT Cars data set, the cylinders variable is a numeric or a double. So I don't want a continuous scale. I want a discrete scale for the colors. I'm going to slightly change. I'm going to do something arbitrary and make the point sizes a little bit smaller because I kind of like that. And then I put some titles in the labs argument here. And so I run it. And you already saw it up here. I'm going to show it to you here for a second. You can see, well, it's kind of stretched out. Give it a second to adjust. It's pretty basic. I could fix the X and Y labels. Of course, tick marks look fine. Everything looks okay. Cylinders, the legend is appropriately labeled, things like that. I mean, I've used capital letters here for no good reason. You would want everything to be consistent. So I typically like capital letters at the beginning of each word that isn't, like a preposition or something like that, or an article. Okay, so let's get into what the theme does. So I may have already shown you there are some canned themes inside R, and one that I like to use a lot is theme minimal. And because it's canned, you just open and close parentheses, leave it blank, and you let it run. And it's nice and clean, and it's got a white background with a light and small gray grid lines for the major lines and the minor lines. They're slightly different between the major and the minor, which looks kind of nice, I think. And let's see. I'm actually going to show you first what all the possibilities are. Okay. So we're going to take this and we're going to go to I'm going to leave that link in the script so that you can look at whenever you want. And then here are all the possibilities for arguments inside a theme. You can see it's a pretty ridiculous list. Some things involve strip for faceting. I should probably start from the beginning so that it makes more sense. Line, rect, meaning like the area of the rectangle. Text, title, the aspect ratio, and then things related to an axis, including titles for the axis, meaning like, labels, something specific about the labels. Axis text, meaning the labels that are actually on the ticks relative to like the label for the variable, right? Let's see. Axis lines, whether or not to have those, legends, all the things related to legend. So there panels, so panel border, background spacing, all this kind of stuff. This is all related to the background underneath the plotting environment, right? This is about the grid and where the line should go. The plot background related to coloring background, things like that. You can put captions in places, et cetera, et cetera. There's just a lot of things that you can play with. Okay. So I've set up a sort of Frankenstein version. This is not intended to look good. This is just intended to vary things so that you can see how they vary. All right, I'm actually going to create and save as my own object a new theme using the generic theme function. And then I've got a few arguments that I'm going to use to make my own. And I'm calling it Frankenstein because it's probably going to end up looking not perfect because I just picked kind of some random things. All right, so theme Frankenstein. I'm going to comment out that link. And now I've got this plot, and I'm going to change everything according to the new theme, and I'm going to talk about all the things that happened. Okay. Okay. It's not ugly necessarily, but it's certainly not pretty. There are certain things about it that I like, and there are a lot of things that I don't. I just kind of move some random things around. So let's talk about what I did change. Almost every single argument in theme is tied to an element, right? So are you talking about text, a rectangular area, a line, or something like that? Axis title. So like I said, that's like the variable title here. I decided to change it with element text and then the arbitrary choice of changing it to red. Again, you could use hex codes here if you wanted to. Then I have plot title Helvetica, but I could just as easily change it to some other thing. Like, let's go Courier just to be weird. Let's run it, and then let's rerun Frankenstein, and you'll see that the title now has a different font than everything else. That's usually a bad idea. You really want consistency in your plots and your visualizations in terms of things like font, but there might be a rarest of conditions where different fonts might be useful. Anyway, that's where you would manipulate something like that. I actually changed the text in the separate dimensions. So X and Y, I actually made as blue and orange. You can see the labels for the values or the parts that changed there. Okay, this is the orange. It's kind of a yellowish orange, but it's an orange by the definition of default orange. I changed the length of the axis ticks. This is one of the rare ones where element is not needed. You just need a unit of measurement. And there are times when a longer tick might be useful, and there are times when no tick might be useful, and you might actually want to get rid of it. It just really depends on the plot. And then things like the panel background. If you want it to be really weird, you could, change it and make it blue. And you'll see what happens. It gets kind of freaky and looks like that movie Tron from the 80s or something like that. Let's see, panel grid major and minor. Those are about the lines that are creating the grids. You could make them be a little bit different. And you can see that one is a little bit thinner than the other, kind of like the way the theme minimal has it. Let's see, you can play with the text. You can see here, legend.txt. I changed the texts. I changed the background of the legend key. So there's usually, the default is a little gray square underneath. I think that's kind of ugly, so I make them white. I changed the size of the key, and I changed the title font size here. You can see it's a little bit smaller. There's just a lot you can do with themes. Themes are not the only place that you can make these kinds of manipulations. You can do them even underneath that in what's called a GROB layer, the graphical object, but that's sort of beneath ggplot in sort of the order of coding. Like the graphical object kind of gets set underneath. But themes are a really powerful thing. It's really useful. You can get into a style that you like, and then you can keep it. All right, that is going to do it for now.